You ready?
Yep.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage Ignite podcast with Mike and Janelle Friedrich. And we talk about all things marriage,
Yes.
family, and faith. And we're excited to be back with you for another episode. And we're going to go deeper in identity again. Last week, we had a good friend of ours, Clyde Lewis, and we talked about identity, unpacking what does your true identity even mean. And today we're going to go deeper in that because it's been such I think a topic so many people have actually asked for, and they're like, can you go deeper? So we're going to go deeper. And two quick favors. If you can just give us a 5-star rating, that would be so helpful and appreciated so that we can really get this out to more and more people and that they'll be tuning in. And then the second thing is, if this resonates with you and you're thinking of someone that you love and care about, that you're like, you know what? My friend needs to hear this, then we'd love it if you shared it with that person. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll dive in. All right. So again, let me start it this way. Almost every husband and wife that we end up working with at some point, it's usually right in the beginning, they feel like they've lost themselves, or they feel like they don't know who they are anymore. Or maybe they felt like they've never even known themselves, period, outside of maybe being a husband, being a wife, or outside of their work or being a mom. And we talked about this last week. That's part of your identity, but that's not your true identity, right? We bring your true identity into those roles. And one of the most subtle and dangerous places that we can find ourselves in marriage is when we feel like we've lost our purpose. And maybe you feel like you're going through the motions of being a spouse. And maybe you're really good at managing the day-to-day stuff that goes along with being a mom or a dad and managing the kids' schedules. But you're totally dry when it comes to really feeding your marriage or even feeding yourself.
Yeah. This is really good. And we talked a little bit about this last week with Clyde. And he said this too. And I kind of chuckled because identity is one of my life messages. It is in me. It is something I love to talk about every single day. I love to help people find their identity. I love to see people actually come alive in their true identity, because before I knew this, because we started to discover all of this about 10 years ago, and we want to honor actually Jamie and Donna Winship, because they have an incredible identity work, our identity business, Identity Exchange. They're doing so much in the kingdom. It's just absolutely mind blowing. And this is where we learned there are mentors. And you can have mentors that mentor you directly, and then you can have mentors that mentor you indirectly. And we've met them, but they've really mentored us indirectly, and we just love them, and they literally changed our lives.
So let's give just a quick plug for their book. You can check it out. It's called Fearless, and you can find them on YouTube as well. But anyway, so I just wanted to give a quick plug for them because they have been instrumental in what we do in our journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we discovered this, it was literally a game changer for me. It was like, wow, I've been I've been walking my walk with God for years, and this was one of the missing pieces. And so let's talk about what is identity. And I want to just narrow it down to one sentence because I believe it's so powerful, and it's what you believe about yourself. Then there's your like false identities that you operate in, and we all operate in false identities. And then there's your true identity, and that's what we really want, right? We want to operate in our true identity. And there's so many scriptures on identity. If you just went and Googled scriptures on identity, you'd get an entire list. But Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." So when you begin to walk in your true God-given identity, you not only see yourself differently, but you see the world differently. You begin to see things from a completely different lens. You begin to operate differently. You begin to react differently. Everything changes when you begin to walk in your identity.
That's right.
And knowing your identity and living it out daily is one of the most powerful things that you can know. It will literally transform your life. It'll transform your marriage, how you communicate with each other. It'll transform how you parent, how you view the world, how the world views you. And it's literally incredible. And so everything about you will be different if you know your identity. Your identity helps you navigate through life. And it is the most powerful way to end frustration, anger, and you begin to operate in love. You begin to operate in peace, joy, and freedom. And it will literally transform your life. It will transform your marriage. And so I want to talk about false identity because there's so much on false identity. But false identities are conditioned thought patterns rooted in painful childhood experiences, which developed into belief systems that we use as a survival and coping mechanism. So when we're in a false identity, some of the things that we do is we self-protect. We self-promote. I love to add in too that we isolate. And then we also separate, which I believe are very different. Because what happens is we begin to isolate. We don't want to leave the house. We don't want to go anywhere. We don't want to do anything. But when we talk about separate, we begin to separate ourselves from people, which isolation causes that. We separate ourselves from people. We separate ourselves from God. And we literally we can start to, just get tormented. And it's not working. And so I want to talk about, I want to give a list, okay? So I want to give a list of, and you can jump in here if you want, but I want to give a list of some false identities. And then how, when we're operating in those false identities, the things that we begin to do. So what happens is when we are living in a false identity of I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I'll never match up, I'm all alone, I'm a failure. What happens is then we begin to operate and make decisions from that place.
Yeah. You were talking about self-protecting, and this shows up in marriage in the form of a really common one. You all know what I'm talking about is when you get defensive. Defensiveness is one of the biggest marriage killers. Ooh. And we do that because in that moment we're operating in a false identity, but the key word or words you want to put in here is because you don't know who you are and you're trying to self-protect. You're trying to really protect this false idea of who you even are, or you don't even know who you are. Because otherwise, why are you trying to self-protect? All right.
Well, there was that quote that I saw on social media and I grabbed it. I was like, oh, this is so good. But it said that when you know who you are, you won't get offended.
Yeah.
You just won't get offended.
That's powerful when you think about that.
Yeah. If anything, you'll go, oh, wow. Wow, you actually think that about me? Or wow, I'm operating that way. And you go back to God and you process it with God and you work it out with him because you know who you are.
I think we really have tried to work on being unoffendable. I think that's how we really operate. And you'll see a couple, not just couples, but individuals that can operate from a place of, man, they are hard to offend. They're so fun to be around because they don't have to self-protect. Like it's not even a thing for them. All right, keep going.
Yeah. So some of the things that you'll do when you're operating in a false identity, and again, these false identities come from childhood. They come often from wounds, from trauma, things like that maybe wasn't your fault. And most of the time, often, it's not. I remember just at 5 years old, I had this thing that happened to me at 5 years old that I was like, I don't need anybody's help. I can do this all myself. And I operated in fear in everything I did. And so what I did is it came out through performance.
And control.
Control.
Yep.
I wanted to perform and control because I didn't want fear because of what happened to me when I was 5 or 6. And so what are some of the things that we do in marriage when we're operating in a false identity is we sweep things under the rug. We don't deal with things. Ooh, that's a big one. You walk on eggshells. You maybe bring up past mistakes because you want to prove your point.
And you think if I bring it up one more time, this is when they're really going to get it. And then they're going to stop and they're going to change their ways. It works. Never.
And then you maybe criticize, ask too many questions, and you just keep talking. You feel that you're always right. You might roll your eyes, sigh, have negative facial expressions. Ooh, you might be really negative, like every word that comes out of your mouth is negative. I mean, this is all operating in false identities. You use a tone or sarcasm. You might numb out on life and you scroll, drink a lot of wine, you overwork, spend more time with friends and your kids than you do with your significant other. Okay, we're just giving a list of things.
Or, yeah, your kids. That's a big one. Usually it's, for the wife, it's usually the kids. For the husband, it's usually work. One of those two things. Now, nothing's black and white, but that's usually where we see it. Right?
Well, and what happens is that we keep operating in these things and we believe that one day it's just going to figure itself out. Like marriage is just going to one day improve itself. Like we'll get this figured out. Let's just keep doing these things that aren't working.
I remember my go-to was football, beer, and the couch. And that was my go-to. That was my way of operating when I got home from work because I thought, I deserve it. I deserve it. I need to relax. And so you'd come home and you wanted to connect. And I'm like, what's with all the questions? And it just started. And of course, when you're drinking all the time, it's the perfect, and I'm using quotation marks here, the perfect thing to numb out to, because you literally do numb out to the most important things in your life. And it just isn't healthy if you do this over and over and over and over. And these strategies, if you can even call them that, because they're not strategies, they don't work. They're destructive to your marriage. They make you burnt out, resentful, angry, overwhelmed. And they literally will drive a wedge in between you. And the crazy thing here is usually it's so subtle, and that's the problem, is the lag time. The lag time is so long, you don't notice it until it's gone on for so long. You look up 10 years later and you realize, I don't even know who my spouse is anymore. I don't know where we've gone. I don't even know how we got here. And I don't even know if I like him or her anymore.
Ooh, something just popped up when you were talking, and this is so good because there's so much meat when it comes to walking in your identity. And when we help either a couple, a husband and wife, begin to walk in their identity, it changes everything.
Yeah.
But let's say a wife comes on board, because we get a lot of wives, and we begin to help her walk in her identity. She transforms the house. I mean, it's because she's operating in peace. And then the husband starts to feel it and wants to be around her more and spend more time with her. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. But we were at Noah's soccer game on Saturday.
Noah's our son.
Yes, Noah's our middle son. And we were at a soccer game, and it was the end of the game. And I was standing off to the side, and I had the chairs and the wagon. And this couple walked up, and they had their kids about ready to watch. They were going to start the soccer game, right? They were coming up next after us. And he went to go set the chairs down where they were going to sit on the sideline. And he set the chairs down, put the blanket down, got everything ready. And I'm just standing there. I watched this whole thing. And he goes off to the side to get to stand in the shade. And I see her walk over and she goes, "Why did you put our chairs there?" And he goes, "Oh, I just thought that was a good place." And she's like, "Well, I don't want our chairs there. I want our chairs down there." And she pointed down the field. And he said, well, I didn't think it was an issue. I thought this was a great space. We can see the field. And all of a sudden it started this huge fight, and they start arguing over these chairs at the soccer game. And it went on for minutes. Like, it felt like 10 minutes as I was waiting for Mike to pray with the kids and all of that. And I had this moment and this thought that, okay, this is a really good example that we see happen in marriage, where this is often the beginning of operating in false identities. And I thought for a minute, and I was like, okay, I want to use this example, because did it really matter if we're to look at life and look at eternity? Let's say we've got life, we've got 80 years here. There was 1 hour soccer game, a 1 hour soccer game that they came together to be with their kids, to watch their kids play soccer. And she didn't like where they were sitting. She made it very clear and started a big fight over a 1 hour soccer game, and lost intimacy and connection completely. Now, I'm not just throwing the wife. This is both sides, but I saw this whole thing unfold, and Mike and I began to talk about it that day. And I said, this is where intimacy, this is where connection gets broken.
Yeah.
This is where it's so small. It is so small, but when it begins to happen over and over and over and over, and you could just feel he was so defeated. And he waited until everyone left. He went and grabbed the chairs. He moved everything down the field. He was upset. She's upset. The daughter's upset now. And it's like, was it worth it? Did it really matter? I want to stop here for a second, because this was me. And this is why I was so aware of it, because that's how I was with Mike. Everything he did, everywhere we went, how he drove, what he wore, where we parked, where we sat, like, he could never do anything right. And that's all I could see, was this going on between the two of them, where he, in his mind, I could just see him thinking, I can't do anything right. Like, everything I do, I can't do it right. She complains about everything. And you could just sense that was going on in their marriage. And this goes back to just operating in false identities, where we just operate and we want everything our way, and everything has to be perfect. And if it's not our way, then we voice it, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. So one thing that's really important I want to point out here is there's nothing wrong with, in that scenario, where maybe the spouse, like, hey, there's a spot down there that might be even better. And so you might be thinking, well, what's wrong with, like, suggesting a different place to sit? And so, but here's where we talked about the false identity point. It was the tone, and it was the venom that was coming out the way that she said it. So it wasn't wrong that she suggested sitting somewhere else. It was the way that it came out. And the way it came out was because she thought in the way that it came out was she was operating in a false identity. She could have just said, hey, babe, what do you think about, like, moving down here? I was thinking over here. What do you think about that? But it was totally different. The way that it came out was, why in the world would you choose to sit here? That is so dumb. I mean, she didn't say it in exactly those words, but that's kind of what she was communicating and what she was saying. And we're in Arizona, and right now it is the most beautiful time of the year. It's 75. I mean, we're not talking 110 degrees. So anywhere you said, it's going to be beautiful. So again, I want to make that quick distinction there.
Well, and what you just said is key, is that if she would have said, what do you think? Just one sentence to bring him into the decision making.
And it's not about manipulation, okay? So some of you might be thinking, well, it just seems like manipulative language. Like,
yeah.
No, it's not. It's just being kind.
Well, it's about honor.
Yeah, it is honor. Yeah.
It's about having honor of, and us women, we think so different than men do. And we are very detailed, and we love we just love things a certain way. We run the house. We help take care of the kids. We run the kids' schedule.
The guy thought he was a champ because he was lugging everything. Yes. He was carrying everything. Yes. And this guy had some muscles, man. I was looking at this dude. I'm like, this dude is yoked. So, I mean, he was the mule. He was carrying all this stuff. So in his mind, he's like, man, I'm doing my thing. I'm a good husband. Let me put this down. Let everyone get comfortable. And then all of a sudden, here it comes. Boom.
Wow.
He did it wrong.
Well, and I wanted to bring this up because I feel like when stories pop up in my spirit when we're talking, they need to be talked about because I feel like it's a great training point. And I only speak from this because that was me. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. And Mike would take it as, wow, as criticism, as dishonor, disrespect. And again, this goes both sides. I'm just giving an example here.
Right.
And so again, everything is how we word it. It's, and again, this isn't going back to having to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's about the small drops of anger.
There you go.
The small drops of criticism over and over, the small drops of rejection over and over and over again lead to broken trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
They lead to infidelity. They lead to porn. They lead to, and you can start to look back on when this happened in our marriage because we did. I looked back and go, wow, I was just as fault as you were because I was just controlling and I just wanted to run the household and I just wanted to do my thing, not realizing that I was emasculating you, not realizing that I was hurting you, not realizing that I was operating in a false identity all the time.
So I love this scripture at Ephesians 4:22 through 24. And it says that you put off concerning your former conduct, the old man, which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Okay. Being renewed in the spirit of your mind. And that you put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. So the better way about discovering and knowing and operating in your God-given true identity, it changes everything. But you got to get a glimpse of not only how do you see God, but also what do you believe about God and how he sees you. And so this is going to take some faith because it takes no effort to hear the voice of the enemy. It takes no effort, but it does take faith to be able to really press in about who God says you are. This morning when I was, we were getting the kids ready for school. Here we go, Noah again, middle son Noah. We're preparing him for his spelling test that he has on Friday. And so I have these flashcards and we do a run through of his 20 words every morning before he goes. And with one of the words, I was, okay, how do you spell? I don't remember what the word was, he was leaving out a whole letter and I'm like, okay, try to get your almost there. And he kept getting really mad at me. He's like, and then I told him what it was. And he's like, I said that. And I'm like, no, you did. And he just started getting really, really, really upset because he so wants to perform and he wants to get 100%. And he started getting really angry. And so I said, okay, Noah, who are you? Who are you? Because I'm not going to talk to you until you get back into your identity. Because he was out of his identity. He was freaking out. And by the way, this isn't just for husband and wife. This is something that we teach our kids. It's so stinking powerful. And so Noah, one of his identities is he's a peacemaker. And so anytime he starts, having a moment and freaking out, I'm like, no, who are you? Who are you, Noah? And then he'll say, I'm peacemaker. I'm peacemaker, Daddy. And I said, okay, so would a peacemaker talk like that? No. It was so cute. And so immediately it shifted him. Rather than me just getting more mad at him, I just called him into who he was, his identity. And this isn't who I've called him. This is what God gave to him. And there's a whole exercise that we walk through with our clients, and we'll put the link to Janelle's identity course in the show notes. But it's so powerful, y'all. It is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And we got through this real quickly. And again, your true identity, it is the essence of who you really are. And it's the letter I, that you carry deep within, secured in love, and grounded in your inherent worth, operating in peace, thriving in joy, no matter what the circumstances. All right? No matter what the circumstances. You can operate in your identity at any time.
Wow.
And we grab that one, and we'll call each other out. We do this playfully.
Because we're at this place where we can.
Yeah, so it takes some maturity to know when you can say that. We'll playfully say when we're having a moment, we'll say to each other, okay, who are you, Janelle? Who are you, babe? All right, let's get back in your identity. And it's our playful way of getting each other back to, where we should be. All right. And I love one of the scriptures that it's above our oldest son, Josiah's bed. We have this put on a big board, Jeremiah 1:5. It says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart and I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Oh my goodness, I love that one so much because it is, again, goes back to your inherent worth of who God knows who you are before he created you. And when you start acting up and you start operating in a false identity, that's not how God designed you. And it's real easy to point these out in your spouse, but this is where you've got to have some maturity and take ownership of really, where am I operating in a false identity? Now, what we find is that when you start living in your true identity, and you operate from that place, here's what's in it for you. Right? Here's what's in it for you is that you can hear God's voice clearly in your life. You start experiencing peace and you enter joy, because that joy is not something that's manufactured from something outside of you. It's manufactured from that spirit, the spirit man inside of you, because you know who you are. And you're not only fully connected more to your spouse, you're fully connected to other people in your life. You forgive quickly. You operate from a place of, you know what? I don't have anything to prove. Like, I know who I am. I don't have to prove myself to anybody. You know your worth. You know your purpose, which is a big one. We talked about that earlier. You have more self-confidence. You're present at work. You're present when you're resting. The creativity within you flows more. You have more self-awareness. And here's the other cool thing is that God starts putting more divine appointments in you're more present. You're aware of the divine appointments. You don't just blow past them and you're like, oh, that was interesting. That was a coincidence. No, you start realizing, wow, that was a divine appointment. And walking in your true identity is when you are operating in love, peace, joy, and freedom.
And when you're walking in a false identity, and you begin to realize it, I mean, it feels awful.
Yeah,
let's just be real. When you're operating in overwhelm or anxiety or fear, guilt, shame, when you start operating, I'm not good enough, and you start operating in these false identities, I mean, it doesn't feel good. And you want to get back into your true identity as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that this has just encouraged you and we just wanted to go a little bit deeper. And I want to do this real quick, and then I want you to close out, is really pay attention to how often that you're operating in a false identity. Because when I did this, I realized, I was operating in a false identity all day long. There were some days that I was like, whoa, like I have no peace. I have no joy. Like I am irritated, because that was my go-to one, was irritation.
You have one fruit of the spirit right now. You have one fruit, not fruits. You have one fruit.
Yeah. And so it doesn't feel good, and you want to get back into your identity as quickly as possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's what we want you to do. If this is stirring something inside of you, because for most of you that are listening, we want you to know that this might be a radically new concept, because this isn't something that we hear taught much in church. But this is nothing more than you knowing the depths of who you are and who God created you to be, your unique you. The fingerprint that God gave you on who you are is like no one else. And walking out who God has called you to be. And so how do you find your true identity? That's probably the biggest, you're like, okay, this sounds really good, Mike, Janelle, but how do I find this? Where do I go from here? All right, so this is a deeper discovery, and one that you should be on for the rest of your life. And we are on. And we cannot unpack this whole thing in just one podcast episode, but we do have a course that you can find on our website, marriageignite.com, or we're also going to put it in the show notes below. You can click on the Discovering Your True Identity course. It's amazing. It is so stinking good. And
it's for male and female too, baby.
Yeah.
It's for husbands and wife.
There you go. Thank you for reminding me. All right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to close it up. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the Marriage Ignite podcast. And we are excited to have you tune back in next week for another episode. God bless. Thank you for joining us.